Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a coach, a manager, a supervisor, or really anyone in people development, you already know that the quality of your conversations absolutely dictates the success of your team. Today, we're breaking down a highly practical framework from Fred Clements' book, 30 Coaching Tools and Approaches That Actually Work. We're zooming in on a toolkit designed for real conversations, real people, and real change. We're talking about the fair feedback model. Let me ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest here. Are your feedback conversations causing defensiveness instead of growth? We see this workplace problem constantly, don't we? You sit down with the best intentions to help someone move forward, but the conversation gets incredibly unclear. Ownership is poor, trust takes a hit, and suddenly everybody is just stuck in their thinking. You're left sitting there wondering how to actually help that person. It's a deeply frustrating loop, right? And that brings us to this core philosophy from Fred Clements. He writes, "When I give feedback, the purpose should be to help the person succeed." It sounds so simple, but honestly, it is a massive mindset shift. So often, feedback feels like this punitive measure, just a laundry list of things you did wrong. But the FAIR model completely flips the script on that. It frames feedback as a tool of genuine constructive support. So to master this toolkit, here's our roadmap. We'll start with the broken feedback loop, unpack the FAIR model, look at why it matters, discuss using it in practice, cover some pitfalls and examples, and wrap up with better conversations and real change. Let's get right into it. Section 1, the broken feedback loop. Okay, we need to start by fixing the underlying structure, because historically, giving feedback is just deeply uncomfortable. Now, you might be familiar with the AID model: action, impact, and do. And to be clear, there's actually nothing wrong with AID when it's used properly, but Clements noticed it was being seriously misused. Managers and coaches were using it almost as a way of getting back at people. Instead of being this great tool for development, it morphed into a weapon for criticism, totally lacking any sense of fairness at the front end. So the crucial takeaway here is this. Feedback should never ever be a shield for your own frustration. We have a bad habit of using clunky models to hide behind vague judgments without being fair or balanced. Look, it's totally okay to normalize the anxiety around delivering feedback. That's human, but we desperately need a new structure so we stop delivering it so poorly. Section 2, the fair feedback model. Let's shift away from the problem and look at Fred Clements' custom-built solution. The whole purpose of the FAIR model is to make feedback more human, more balanced, and actually useful. I want to be super clear. This isn't about avoiding difficult conversations or being soft. Not at all. It's about delivering feedback that is crystal clear, highly respectful, and geared 100% toward the other person's success. FAIR is an acronym that gives a really safe, reliable structure to complex conversations. It breaks down into 4 simple steps: FAIR, actions, impact, and recommendations. First, you check your fairness, then you objectively describe the actions. Next, you explain the impact of those actions. And finally, you agree on recommendations to move forward. Section 3, why fair feedback matters. So why should we care about adding this specific structure to our chats? Well, it really comes down to the emotional stakes of professional interactions. At the end of the day, people remember exactly how feedback made them feel. It either builds trust or it shatters it. If your delivery feels unfair to them, people shut down. They get defensive, they feel ashamed, and they completely miss the actual message you're trying to send. It really doesn't matter how right you are. If the interaction feels unfair, the learning opportunity is just gone. And here's the best part. FAIR isn't just for correcting mistakes or what we usually call negative feedback, which, let's face it, often just sounds like punishment. It is equally powerful for positive reinforcement. We shouldn't just praise people vaguely. We should use FAIR to tell them exactly what they did well, what impact it had, and how they can keep doing it. Good performance should never just be ignored or brushed off with a generic good job. Section 4, using FAIR in practice. All right, let's get into the weeds. How do you, as a busy manager or a coach, actually apply this toolkit? The F, fairness, is hands down the most crucial step of the entire model. Before you even open your mouth to give feedback, you have to run through a quick mental checklist. Am I genuinely trying to help them grow? Or am I just offloading my own frustration? Am I recognizing what went well too? Is this the right time, or are they completely overwhelmed right now? Is the setting private and psychologically safe? Listen, if the F is wrong, the rest of the model simply will not work. Next up is actions. You absolutely must be specific, not vague. If you walk in and say you were unprofessional, well, that's a subjective judgment that practically invites an argument. Instead, specific feedback sounds like, when John was speaking, you interrupted him twice. See the difference? This step demands clear, objective evidence. Then you move right into impact and recommendations. You explain the impact. For example, the impact of those interruptions was that the meeting became tense and people just stopped contributing. By outlining the objective impact on the team or the customer, it naturally leads you to the final step, recommendations. You collaboratively ask them, what do you think could help moving forward? You invite their ideas so the recipient actually owns the path forward. Section 5. Pitfalls and practical examples. Let's pivot to some real-world context, because we all know no model is foolproof. If you fall into the common traps, you've got to watch out for these common mistakes. Skipping that vital F step, using vague actions, or describing the impact in this accusatory, shaming kind of way. Definitely avoid delivering your recommendations as strict orders or saving up feedback for months instead of just making it timely. And worst of all, public criticism. Just don't do it. Remember, a feedback model cannot magically hide poor intent. People will sense it a mile away. Let me share a fantastic practical example from the text. Clements actually used the FAIR model with a highly fractured senior management team. We're talking significant trust issues. He modeled it for them first and then had them practice in pairs. And you know what? It gave this broken team a structure that was finally safe enough for them to speak, listen, and understand each other honestly. It became way more than just a management task. It literally became a tool for rebuilding their trust. Section 6. Better conversations, real change. Let's loop back to the beginning and wrap this up. The ultimate goal here is to transform feedback from a dreaded sweaty palm task into intentional everyday development. And yeah, the framework might feel a little clunky at first when you start using it. Actually, scratch that. It probably will feel clunky. That is totally normal. But with practice, I promise you, it creates safer, much more constructive relationships across your entire organization. So as we finish up here, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Right before your next difficult conversation, just pause for a second and ask yourself, is my intent right? And do I genuinely want this person to be successful? If you can honestly answer yes to both, then you are ready to use the FAIR feedback model. For more information, head over to clementsconsultancy.com to buy a discounted PDF copy of the book, or head over to Amazon for the ebook or printed version. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and here is to much better conversations.